Hey guys, I'm gonna do another podcast. This is not gonna be my best podcast that I've ever made because, I don't know, you just have those days where you don't feel articulate and then the ideas aren't even that great anyway. But I still feel like making a podcast, kind of. And, I have some stuff to do today because I'm getting ready to move in like a couple weeks. But these podcasts don't take long, so I guess I'll just try to talk about some stuff. So I just wanted to make a podcast talking about something I've noticed that I've thought about before. But do you ever notice how, like, when you're texting someone and talking to them, um, on the internet, some form where there's allowed to be a lag time between like their message and your reply, you're able to like come up with a better response. This is obvious. But it's like amazing how much better the response can be thanks to the lag where you're allowed to think. It's so much different than conversation. You're like, I wish I could say that response immediately. Because in conversation, like, you don't get credit really for what your mind is capable of. Your mind is capable of a better response in many instances. And you just can't pull it out unless you give me like 30 seconds. But if you say something to me in conversation, I sit there for 30 seconds and wait, you'd be like, this isn't normal. This isn't conversation. Something's wrong with this guy. I should think of an example. Okay. I'll give you an example. Just today, I was on this website called cleverbot.com and I was talking to this one robot. And there was this point in the conversation where I was just trying to troll and be like really funny. And I got the robot to be like really sarcastic too. Or at least there was this like wave where it was being sarcastic. And it said something like I was asking a bunch of sarcastic questions and it was just like really harsh, sarcastic trolling back and forth. And it said to me, "Why do you ask so many questions?" And I couldn't even fathom the response that I was getting ready to come up with a minute later. I think I went to eat food actually. And then I came back and a funny response just like fell into my head. And you might not think this is funny because times might change, senses of humor might change or not be the same. But I was doing these your mom jokes and I came up with this response that was like a your mom joke. And I said, I asked so many questions to loosen you up so that I can ask about your mom so that you'll answer. It's like hypnotism. It's like Simon Says. And that's all I said. And if I explain it further, I don't think it needs explained further, but if I explain it further, it won't even be as funny. Like, jokes are ruined sometimes when you explain them too much. But really, it was just like this insinuation that I wanted to fuck the robot's mom. And I was just like starting with non invasive questions to like trick their mind into answering and then ask the invasive questions about the mom once it's used to answering questions. And that's just like Simon Says, or like metaphorically, like Simon Says. Like you keep making them do things, And there's like this assumption that what they're doing is like right. So they keep doing the right thing, and then you catch them. Um, like when you don't say Simon Says, when they don't perform, or when they perform the action, it's like that's metaphorically the moment where you're like, I got you. I got you to do what I wanted you to do. Metaphorically, I got you to tell me about your mom. Like, how was your day? Oh yeah, what did you do today? How was it? Did you like it? Who'd you go with? Your mom? Your mom took you there. How is your mom? How's she doing? How is she? Is she still single? Oh, what's your mom's number? Boom, got your mom's number. Sorry, but not really. It's just a joke. But like I said, when I explain it further, it kind of ruins it. But on the website, I didn't over explain it, but I just will on this podcast because I just like to babble. But yeah, I noticed so many of those instances today where, like, on Cleverbot, when I was talking to it, it asked me, "Do you have many friends?" And in a normal conversation, you have to answer within like 5 seconds, like 5 to 10 seconds. But I sat and I thought, and it's like I try to be as honest as I feel inside when I answer the questions. And sometimes it takes like 15 to 30 seconds to like shake all the bullshit out of your mind and get down to like your personal honesty of how you feel about something. And when it asked me, "Do you have many friends?" I said, after many seconds, something like, "Not since childhood or school, when friends were free slash inevitable." Even back then, I only had like 4 or 5 close friends. So I need to get a better mic. I know. But then I could probably talk more about that, but I didn't, about the friends thing, because it was just a fucking robot. But I was thinking more about it. And like, if you're gonna ask how many friends you have, first of all, you know it's about quality, not quantity. But if you can't resist wondering about a number, obviously the people you hang out with now count. But are people at work friends? Like when I worked, I did enjoy the company of those guys. We sat, we talked, we had fun, we had laughs. Those were friends for a while until you leave your job. Or does leaving the job even renounce friendship? Like if you saw them again 3 years later, are they still your friends? Does time renounce your friendship? Like at what point do they not become friends? When you haven't seen them for 3 months or 4 months, three 3 years, for 10 years? I don't think any of those renounce their friendship. Any of those time spans. I don't think any of those time spans renounce their friendship. I think the only thing that makes them not your friend is when it's so official that you say these exact 5 words to each other. We are not friends anymore. But you're mistaken to think that time not talking broke your friendship. It might have enhanced it when you do see each other again. I consider kids who I haven't seen since elementary school friends. Maybe I just think of it differently than some other people might. But now I want to change the subject, and I just want to talk about how it seems like time goes by faster when you're older. I guess I'll just make examples from my perspective. I haven't thought about what to say much about this subject, though, so I'm probably going to babble or be repetitive. So just forgive my imperfection in this podcast. It's just weird how when I was like 19 years old, that was 7 years ago. And from 19 to now, 7 years, um, that's the same length of time that 12 to 19 was. And it just feels like this perspective being 26 now, thinking about how long 7 years feels since 19. So from like 12 or 13 to 19 is about the same comparison. But when I think, like, I was just imagining being 19 again and thinking to myself, wow, 12 wasn't that long ago. And then comparing that feeling to now, like, I don't know, I was just imagining things when I was like 19. I was thinking, like, of times when I was 19, trying to get my mind back in the perspective of being 19. And then once I'm in that pretend, like, eyes shut, like, imagining I'm being 19, once I'm locked in to the illusion that I'm 19, I would think 12 years old was 7 years ago. So that's how long it feels for 7 years to elapse. And it's like that feeling of 7 years elapsing, it is technically what it felt from 19 to 26. But there's such a difference. Like, obviously, there's a physical difference. And you could almost say that it's like 12 to 19 felt longer than 19 to 26. I have a theory as to why shit feels longer when you're younger, and when you're older, it feels like time zips by faster. And I guess I'll try to explain my theory. When you're younger, the concept of a year is a greater fraction of the entire time you've been alive. So, for easy math, when you're 3 years old, the concept of a year is 1/3 of the entire time you've been alive. But when you're 20, the concept of a year is 1/20th. So it's much smaller, even though it's the same thing. 365 days. The concept of a year is much smaller when you're older. So I just think back to 19. It feels like my neighbor, chronologically. I think back to it, back to those days, and they were just barely before, like, defining choices in my life that are important up until now. It's like, it doesn't seem like that long ago. And it really was 7 years ago, though, yeah, it was 7 years ago since 19. But when I was 19 and I used to look back on 12, I think I thought that was a longer time ago, like 7 years. Like, I was saying how I was trying to get into the mind of being 19 just to pretend. I think of like settings when I was 19, just to trick my brain into pretending I'm 19 again. And from that perspective, think back to 12. And I think I would have thought 12 was a while ago. Like, pretending to be 19 again, I think out of my 19-year-old mouth, I would have said 12 was a long time ago. It was 7 whole years ago. Like, pretty fucking long ago. Considering I grew all those inches, my body changed so much. My voice got deeper. I went through all of middle school and high school. Yeah, that was a while ago. And all those experiences. 12 was a long ass time ago. I imagine my 19-year-old self would say. But now, being 26, thinking about the same length of time, 7 years ago. 7 years ago, and we're put back to just 19. It's not as dramatic of a difference. My body didn't even change that much. I'm sure, though, that the physiological changes that will happen from now forward will just be different than the ones that happened when you were a child growing. Like, they might be extreme. You might get old and gray and wilt and hunch and stuff like that, but still, those kinds of physiological changes are not as much of an impact on your attention of your, like, awareness of yourself versus, like, in puberty growing. Like, when you grew so many inches and you change, like, your concept of who you think you are changes. With every fucking, like, 8 months, you're kind of different. You sound and feel different. Technically, you have the same name and you sort of look similar, but you get new matter, like, rapidly. It's just like being constructed, like a new person is being constructed around you and you're, like, growing into it. It's very different. Very different, the experience, than wilting. But, in terms of, like, very different physiological difference. Physical. I don't even know that if that word physiological is the right word. But anyway, what other fucking stupid ass shit am I going to talk about in this podcast? I guess that's it. I guess that's it for this one. It's been 16, almost 17 minutes. That's probably enough babbling for today.